Hey guys, so I made a video called The Ultimate String Guide, and this was a fun video for me because I went through my own string history. I explained what kind of strings exist on the market and also gave some recommendations what kind of strings you should be using at the recreational level. And this is something I've been doing for the last 30 years. Players always come to me, ask me questions about strings, and I love helping my players out. However, in this video I received some interesting comments, so let me read you some. Way too much misinformation in this video. Sad, really. Okay, I accept the comment, but I don't think it's misinformation. This is information that I've been collecting for the last 30 years. I have a lot of experience when it comes to strings and giving advice at the recreational level. Now this one says this is 100% bro science and very inaccurate. I'm not sure what bro science is, but it doesn't sound very good. Now this one is a little bit off topic. It says mansplaining and manspreading. Okay, I'm sorry, I have a certain way that I sit. This is by no means a manspreading. I'm going to try to sit a little bit more like, you know, polite, not spread out so much, even though I'm completely by myself. I don't see anybody else next to me, but I accept the comment. I will work on my sitting style in the future. Now this is funny. Somebody sent this to me. I never realized this existed. It's the Tennis Warehouse forum. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with this, and somebody sent me this link, and there's been a huge thread on several of my videos that I never realized. And this particular one says, co-poly and stiff rackets are the cure for tennis elbow according to Intuitive Tennis. And this is exactly why I made the response video. I never said this. See, the problem with strings is that if you open up Tennis Warehouse, you go to strings, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of strings, and most of those are labeled co-poly strings. Now, some of this blame goes to the manufacturers because the manufacturers do a really terrible job explaining what type of strings they're selling. Sometimes the strings are not labeled at all. I've seen them often mislabeled, and generally there's a lack of information when it comes to the materials that are used in the particular polyester string. So the problem is we can't just say poly strings and make this a general term and apply it across all polyester strings. There are vast differences, as I explained in my original video. So what I want to do today, instead of talking about what kind of materials are in the strings, because this is going to be too complicated anyway, since the manufacturers are not labeling the strings correctly. I wasn't really aware this is the case. Someone told me about this, and they're absolutely correct. The strings are labeled horribly. So my original video dealt more with the type of strings, materials that are inside the string. So today, I'm simply going to give you the recommendations, what type of strings I think are best for you. And mind you, I'm not sponsored by any string. I don't have a string sponsorship, so I'm giving these companies a free plug. And one more thing that's really important when it comes to pain in your arm, please consult your doctor. My evidence is just anecdotal, it's just my experience with my students on the court. This is just my opinion. If you have pain, the first thing you got to do is go see the doctor. Okay guys, so rather than giving you the materials of the strings, I'm going to now give you the brand name and the type of string it is and tell you if it's either good or bad. We'll keep it super simple. But one more thing that's really important for you guys to understand when it comes to pain in the arm. So what happens to a lot of players is they play with a particular string and they get used to that particular string, and their arm gets used to it. And now they make a change. It could be any string, could be the most arm-friendly string ever, and there is a danger of the arm hurting. This happens to a lot of players. So my advice to you is, if you are playing with a string and you like the way it plays, it doesn't cause you any pain, whatever string that may be, whether it's natural gut, Kevlar, whether it's synthetic gut, whether it's copolymer or copolyester monofilament, stick with it. Don't make any changes. You are endangering your arm by making a change. There's nothing wrong with playing with the same materials. Remember, most of the players on tour play with the same string their whole career. I play with the same string for 15 years. Just keep doing what you're doing and don't make any changes. All right, here we go. Luxilon Original Big Banger. This is the original string that came out that Guga Kurten used when he won the French Open. And this is a copolymer. So this string has other materials inside, and this string is not stiff like some people tend to believe. If you watch my previous videos, it's very bendable, very soft string to the touch, but when you play with it, it plays extremely dead. It has absolutely no power. This is great for the pros because they can hit the ball as hard as they want without sacrificing control. For the recreational level, however, anything below 5.0, I do not recommend that you play with this string because you're going to have to exert more energy to hit the ball, and there's a danger that your arm is going to start hurting because of it. Okay, this one is maybe the most popular string on tour. It's the Luxilon Big Banger Alu Power, and this is what most of the professional players play with, and this is great for the high level. But with the recreational level, this makes absolutely no sense. It has the same characteristics as the original Luxilon string, so I do not recommend that you play with this string. Another string that's very popular is the Solinco Hyper G. Now, in my opinion, this string is more geared towards the professional circuit or the high-level junior circuit. This is not something that's good for the recreational player. Now, if you look at the description of the string, it does say copolyester monofilament, but in my experience, this string plays extremely dead, but I know it's very popular at the rec level. So my recommendation is, unless you're a 5.0, do not play with this string because, again, it's going to be super dead. You're not going to get a lot of power. You're going to have to hit the ball very hard, and there's a chance that your arm is going to hurt because of that. Guys, look at this thing. It's a wheel, 400 meter. This is how much I love Polystar. And again, I'm not sponsored by any of these strings. So Polystar is my favorite string. I used to play with it for 15 years. However, we talked about how the manufacturers can be sneaky sometimes. They change the materials without telling us, and all of a sudden it feels different. And we have to be very careful with that because even Polystar, the new version of the string, doesn't quite play like the old one. Like I said in my original video, that 100% polyester string doesn't exist anymore on the market. I cannot find it. It's that super hard string that when you string it on your racket and you go like this, it makes that pinging sound. It's like ping, 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 ping. And that, in my experience, is the string that's the easiest on the arm because the ball just catapults off the racket. Those strings also have a tendency to be very elastic. I know this sounds kind of crazy. So they're very hard to the touch. They're very stiff, but they have a lot of elasticity as well. And this is what Polystar was famous for. They're very elastic, 100% monofilament polyester strings. So when you hit the ball, you have to exert very little energy and you get a crazy amount of power, and therefore this is a lot easier on the arm. I told you I've been giving string recommendations for the past 30 years. Many players come to me with tennis elbow issues, and I recommend this string, for example. And what happens with those players is they get a relief in pain because of the reasons I mentioned previously. They have to exert less energy and their pain tends to go away because of that. Another string that I do recommend for the rec level is the Head Hawk string, and this is also a copolyester monofilament. If you get it in 17 or 18 gauge, it's a super powerful string. Again, very little energy that you have to exert when you hit the ball, and this is another great string for the rec level. And of course, I already talked about this string in my previous video. This is the string I'm playing with right now. It's the Kirschbaum Super Smash. But again, Kirschbaum got a little sneaky and they changed this string. So it's not like the original Kirschbaum Super Smash, even though it does say, I think, original on here. They did change it. So it's not that super pingy string that they used to have. It has been modernized, deadened a little bit, in other words, but it's still a fantastic choice for the recreational level. Now, one thing that I didn't talk about much in the previous video, I did mention it at the very end, is string tension. And there's an epidemic in this country and actually internationally where rackets get strung too tight. I don't know why this is exactly. I have my own suspicions. I think stringers are scared that players of the recreational level are going to bring the racket back because the strings move around too much. So when the strings are strung loosely, the strings have a tendency to move more. Rec players don't like that, so they like it nice and tight so the strings stay in place. And this is why, even though you might be sending a racket to be strung at 45 pounds, it comes back more feeling like 55 or 60 pounds. Also, these modern machines have a way of being calibrated, and there's something called the pull weight. And I'm not an expert stringer by any means. There's master stringers that can talk about this in a much better way. But what I understood is that when the pull weight is set too high, the strings will be overstretched, and this is especially true for polyester strings. See, what happens is when strings get overstretched, they don't snap back in place. So by the time you get your racket that's freshly strung, the strings are already dead before you even hit one ball with it. So what is the tension that you should be stringing at with the strings that I'm recommending? It has to be under 52 pounds. And if you want my honest answer, I think you should string in the 40s. Personally, I string my rackets in the low 40s. If you string it above 50, let's say you get your racket to be strung at 55 with copolyester monofilament strings, like I said, the way these strings get pulled, they get overstretched, and the racket comes back stiff as a board, and it's completely dead anyway. So what happens is you hit a ball, and of course your arm is going to be killing you after a few minutes. So my recommendation is do not go over 52 pounds, and the best thing to do is stay in the 40 range. And finally, I'm going to address some of you guys that wrote how they ruined their arm playing with certain rackets or certain strings. And this is something that's really, really complex, because tennis elbow or arm pain in general can come from many different sources. And I'm going to make a separate video on this, explaining it in great detail. So just because you have experienced pain with a certain combination of racket and string, it doesn't mean that somebody else is going to experience the same thing. You guys hear that sound? That's the Kirschbaum Super Smash Orange, strung at 35 pounds. Listen to that. It is super loose. Now, when I play for real, I probably need 40, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with going low on the tension. If those strings that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that 100% polyester, the string that doesn't exist anymore, those actually you needed to string a little bit tighter. But this modern stuff, this copolyester monofilament, you can go super loose on the tension. It's not going to hurt your control. Don't worry. If anything you want to take out from this video is you reduce the tension on your racket. Obviously, the tighter you go, the tighter the string bed is going to be, and it's going to be tougher on your arm. Don't be scared to go loose. And again, if you like your strings and you have no pain, it doesn't matter what string you play with, keep going with it. But be careful when you give recommendations to other people, because your body got used to this particular material, and somebody else might experience completely different results. This is why there's so many different string companies out there. We're all going to be different. We all have a different muscle memory, and we're going to be used to different materials. But generally speaking, the tips that I gave you today when it comes to strings, the type of strings that are recommended are great for the recreational level, and you should definitely give them a try if you're experiencing pain in your arm.